I would love to see Conor make a really strong comeback and have, some magical moments again, and see a vintage Conor. Like, I crave that. I want that. And I know I'm asking for a lot, and the chances of that happening is like very, very slim, right? But I'm just like, man, like there's just a part of me that hopes that to see that again from Conor. Bro, can we just get like 3 to 4 good bangers from Conor where he's just fucking people up, talking crazy, and just, being vintage Conor. And it's like, I couldn't even imagine, like, if he goes out and destroys Chandler, and then if he gets a win over Gaethje, like, I mean, at that point, you can fight for the title next. It would be crazy. Like, it would be crazy. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you Conor fanboy or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But, even if you're not a fan, like, just think about that storyline, from an Islam perspective or a Justin Gaethje fan perspective. Like, it would be fucking cool. And it would be badass. And it would be so awesome to see. Hey guys, welcome to the False 9 podcast here with episode 175. This is your host, Alvaro, or Alvaro, if you know how to say it correctly. I get a lot of hate for saying names wrong, and I just want to hear y'all say my name right. How about that? I just thought about that right now. Anyways, guys, welcome to the show. Whatever intro and title I use, stay tuned because actually going to be fire. I don't know what I'm going to go with yet. So this weekend, we don't have nothing too much nothing too exciting. We have Derrick Lewis fighting. I almost thought that fight was going to get canceled, and then we'll talk about that in a second. We had the Bud Light sponsorship deal with UFC, I believe, over a week ago. I want to talk about a potential Conor and Islam fight. And then the last thing I probably will mention is Belal Muhammad made a comment about Charles when he pulled out. I was going to talk about it I think 2 episodes ago. I didn't get to it. I forgot, I think. And I just kind of want to bring it up again now and talk about that too. So this will be a shorter podcast, probably half the size of the one that I did on Tuesday. And I do apologize about that. I know that usually I post 20 to 30-minute podcasts. And that one went a little bit overboard. And I should have been smarter and split it up and use some of the content for this episode. But if you did watch it, I do... What is it? What's the word I'm looking for? I appreciate you, but I do also apologize for that. Breaking or any news before I get started. So the feedback on Francis, I always like talking about that, usually on the second episode of the week, because I'll see the comments. I'll see other, content talking about Francis and things like that. So haven't seen too much backlash. Usually I like to see... the situation or the fight just marinate all over social media. And, you'll start seeing people like, oh, like, it wasn't even that big of a deal. Or like Francis, like, could have done better. Or Francis got, like, I was expecting to see something along those lines. And the fact that I didn't, I was like, okay, like, this is a dub for, like, the community, like, not being too crazy out here or saying some wild shit. So it was cool to see that. And I guess everybody respecting Francis Ngannou's performance on Saturday against Fury. And also with that being said, it looks like the fight with Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk, it doesn't look like it's going to happen in December. And I did not think it was going to happen in December after all the damage that he took. They're talking about early 2024, and it sucks for Usyk because I know he wants this fight, and he's been wanting this fight for the longest, and it just got pushed back, and I think it just goes to show you a little bit of the professionalism of Tyson Fury, unfortunately. And don't get me wrong, what he's done has been amazing, but lately just like the chirps and overly confident in the Francis fight, clearly. To sign a contract for December, already thinking you ain't going to take no damage and there's no way, that you won't be ready. And that's exactly what happened. So, little update on that. So let's get right into it. I want to start off by, I'll start off by the Belal comment. I'll start with the least irrelevant or least relevant thing. So, Belal Muhammad made a comment to Charles, on the Islam fight and him pulling out the fight. And he basically said, he believed that Charles was never going to show up. and that he was already planning to, pull out no matter what. He didn't want to go to Abu Dhabi, things like that, right? He created this narrative, and a lot of people did create that narrative, and I said it out on here, but I don't think that was the reason why he pulled out. And I'm also not a fan of Belal Muhammad. A lot of the things he says makes, like, I'm just like, bro, what? It kind of feels like he's trying to, I don't want to use the word fit in, but I mean, he says some things to kind of, grab attention. And I don't know if he's being serious or not, because some people out there really be saying some things and, and they believe him. But for him to say, Charles, didn't want to fight, he wanted to pull out and never wanted to go to Abu Dhabi, just that comment itself, and anyone that thought that and really believes that, I'm just like, bro, that makes no sense, because for Charles, and these fighters in general, like when they have an opportunity or they have a title shot, like for them, like that's it, that's it. Like this title shot, like we don't know that next fight with Charles is going to happen. Like it's not guaranteed, until they sign the contract. Because can you imagine if Volkanovski would have won that fight? And what do you do now? Like you have to run it back with Islam for a third time. You want to see who's the best out of three, and what happens to Charles. And then what if Volkanovski stays as champ at 155? Is he going to fight, Volkanovski now, or does he still want to fight Islam? It gets too complicated. And that could have happened. And that's why I think it's ridiculous when people make that comment that he didn't want to go to Abu Dhabi. Like, yeah, he made it really clear. He didn't want to go to Abu Dhabi. And I don't see what's wrong with that. And I think it's a bit unfair, that Islam's, if I'm not mistaken, he fought, in Australia, and he beat Charles in Abu Dhabi. And then he fought now in Abu Dhabi again. And for me, I'm just like, he hasn't been to Vegas since he's been champ. And I know it's only been 3 fights, right? But I know it's, every small advantage you can get, especially on a title fight, it does affect the fighter, So the fact that the traveling is less and all that, whether he gets rest for a little bit more or he's just in a better state of mind, like it does help a little bit, right? So, I completely understand Charles that he don't want to go to Abu Dhabi and that thinks he's bullshit or whatever he may feel like. I completely understand. I wouldn't want to go to Abu Dhabi. Like, let's fight in Vegas or let's fight somewhere on this side of the world, somewhere like that. I completely get it. But like I said, Charles knew that this could, like for him, this is his last opportunity, and he got cut open and he couldn't make the fight. And that's that, and especially for someone that, in my opinion, hasn't really done anything too impressive in the UFC and in the division. He beat an injured Gilbert Burns. So it's just like, you're not that good. And you haven't done anything crazy in the UFC where, you can say things like that. In my opinion, and maybe if he was champion, if he said that things like, you might be, oh, well, he's champion, I guess he can talk that shit, right? And or have that, I don't know, like, it just feels weird for him to talk all this shit when there's really nothing back that he can fall on, or defend himself, like, oh, well, I did this, right, and I did that, things like that. But that's just my thought on that. And I guess to express my feelings to Belal, because like I said, I'm not a fan, and I can't wait till the moment that reality hits him, and he realizes that he's not up there. He might be top 5 material, but when we talk about elite like 1, 2, and 3, I don't think so. But let's move on. So now we'll talk about this Bud Light sponsorship deal. So back then, I don't know how long and how much was this Bud Light sponsorship deal with the UFC. The UFC moved on, or Bud Light moved on, but they parted ways for a little bit, a few years, I'm assuming. Like I said, don't know many too details, but what I do want to speak about is, they asked Dana White about the sponsorship deal and how he feels about it. And if you guys don't know, earlier this year, Bud Light did a collaboration with somebody, Molvini or Dolvini, I don't really know their last name, and I apologize for messing it up, but a guy or a man who transitioned into a woman, and Bud Light did this collaboration with them, and they got a lot of backlash. Their stock price went down, and all this, stuff happened, right? And then now, a few months later, Bud Light and the UFC come to an agreement, and they're partners now, and Bud Light sponsoring the UFC. We don't know how big the sponsor is. We don't know. We'll see the big old Bud Light logo in the middle of the ring or whatever is going to happen. So I didn't see too much backlash, which I think is hilarious, on the things that I guess people or society decide to kind of get upset about. And UFC is one of those things where the community is kind of like so, like, not fucked up, but kind of crazy and toxic, where I expected backlash, but also the fact that it is UFC, they're probably just like, well, it's all right, And, what happens if, and I think about these things because I just think a lot. And what happens if, the UFC had made this collaboration, and then, they do also the collaboration later down the road with this Mulvaney person? Like, what's the backlash then? Is it the same type of backlash, or is it the same reaction? Because, what is a guy going to say now? Like, when you are drinking a Bud Light, are you supporting the UFC, or are you supporting, like the trans community? Like, which one is? And I think it's funny that that's even a conversation to have, because at the end of the day, it's just a collaboration, and it's all for whether it's publicity or just an image or whatever it may be. And Dana White, like, his response to it was probably the best response, and the response I have about probably just any partnership or sponsorships in general. And he was just like, hey, like, sponsorships are about money, and that's why sponsorships happen. And I'm just like, bro, like, and that's so true. Like, when creators partner up with certain brands and people kind of get upset about it, I was just like, bro, like, that creator or that company or that brand, like, they, for years or months or whatever the time may be, like, they worked hard, and they put in time and effort into their company or their brand. And when they have the opportunity to collab with a big company that may or may not be like what is it called? Like, on the same things that you believe in as, as an individual person, like, why you got to jump to a conclusion like, oh, like, let's try and cancel this guy or this person, like, for making a collaboration. So, and it's true, like, all sponsorships are about money. The collaborations are for money, and, the brand or the company like Bud Light will pay the UFC $100 million to have their logo or whatever how the collaboration is, like, in the UFC. And what that does is it just helps the UFC. It funds the UFC. It helps pay for fighters. It helps pay for bills or whatever business needs, or just profits. But that's the whole point, And I think it's funny when people, like, and like I said, there was no backlash on this one, but when people do get upset, and I'm just like, what? How does this affect your day-to-day life? Like, why is this important to you? I personally don't drink Bud Light, but if my favorite beer, or Modelo or Blue Moon decided to do a collaboration with who knows who, I'm still going to drink that beer when I go to a bar or whenever I want a beer. Like, it doesn't change anything. The beer don't taste any different. I was going to make a fucked up joke, but I shouldn't say that. But the beer tastes the same. And it's just like, well, if the beer tastes the same, I don't get none of that sponsorship money, and I'm not paying anybody for that sponsorship money. So why should it affect me? So, like I said, it's funny when people get upset about these things and make a big deal out of it, because I was like, bro, there's so many more important things that go on your day-to-day life than you posting about how you're mad about, like, a collaboration or things like that. So, and at the end of the day, like, maybe Bud Light did this sponsorship deal because they needed to basically, get their image back and kind of be back on the map and you get their sales up. And it is going to help them, because they kind of did fuck up, or they made a mistake and they got a lot of backlash. And it's like, well, how do we kind of bounce back from here? And there's no better way than partner up with the UFC, where they have a wild community, toxic community, and probably, that community is, I see that community drinking Bud Light. Like, it makes sense. So pretty interesting, and like, it's all just good for the UFC, good for the sport. And I said it'll just help them do more things. So and that's what it's supposed to do. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on that sponsorship though. I wonder if anyone's actually upset about it or bothered by it or just has any really, I guess, thoughts about it. So we have DC or Daniel Cormier said that he would love to see Islam Makhachev and Conor McGregor fight. I don't know the other guy's name, but he was like, "You're joking," or he basically was trolling DC for saying that. Conor has also said that he wants to fight Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje. I don't know if there was another name, but then like Islam Makhachev was the last one. That's who he wants to fight. And I've been, I started watching UFC really like that, because of Conor. I used to watch it here and there, like when I would randomly just find it on TV. I'm like, oh snap! Like, look, there are people fighting in the cage. But when Conor started fighting and he fought Nate Diaz and all that drama went down, I was invested in the second fight. So that's how I started watching UFC. So I'm a big Conor fan, and being a Conor fan, as like he's the first fighter that I was a fan of. So for him, I would love to see him fight Islam, and I would love to him just to have a small comeback in the UFC. He had his amazing time in the UFC, then kind of just went downhill after that. After Mayweather, and then Khabib, and then Dustin Poirier 2 times getting knocked out. Breaking his leg. Kind of just sucks for him. It hasn't. I mean, he only got that win against Cerrone, but that's been about it. But I would love to see Conor make a really strong comeback and have some magical moments again, and see a vintage Conor. Like, I crave that. I want that, and I know I'm asking for a lot, and the chances of that happening is like very, very slim, right? But I'm just like, man, like there's just a part of me that hopes that to see that again from Conor. And I'm just like, bro, can we just get like 3 to 4 good bangers from Conor where he's just fucking people up, talking crazy, and just, being vintage Conor. And it's like, I couldn't even imagine, like, if he goes out and destroys Chandler, and then if he gets a win over Gaethje, like, I mean, at that point, you can fight for the title next. And it's just like that. It would be crazy. Like, it would be crazy. And I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh, you Conor fanboy or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I am. But, even if you're not a fan, like, just think about that storyline, from an Islam perspective or a Justin Gaethje fan perspective. Like, it would be fucking cool. And it would be badass. And it would be so awesome to see. And it would just be a different energy, in the UFC. We had when Usman was champion, Izzy was champion, and Francis was champion. That era and that time being right, the energy felt like different in the UFC. It felt magical. It felt cool, especially for me. At least for me, it did when Usman was champ, and all 3 of them were champ. When the fact that Conor was champ, like, it felt different. When Khabib was champ, I'm not a Khabib fan, but I'm sure for those fans and for those people, like, it had to feel different. Like, the energy, the UFC energy just felt good and it felt different. And that's just kind of what I want, right? From Conor, to have like that Conor energy, the fact that like Conor's fighting, the build-ups, the press conferences, like, there's just so much to look forward to. I mean, like, right now, like, Izzy's kind of, walked away, took a break. Usman, we don't really know what's going on with him or like what his future looks like. And right now, your current champions, you have Islam, you have Pantoja, you got Sean O'Malley. I know right now we're in a kind of a Sean O'Malley era too. We're trying to enter into that. Leon Edwards, real quiet guy. What else? We got the vacant title, and for like the Yuri and Alex fight, like, we're in a different time, a different energy. There's nothing wrong with it. Like, I'm not complaining about it. I love it, and it's a different time for the UFC. But it doesn't feel like one person is like just, we're all just gravitated to this one person. And I feel like when the UFC is in that mode, whether it's Izzy, Usman, or Khabib or Conor, like when that energy's around, like, the UFC just feels different. It feels nice, and it, like I said, there's just so much to look forward to. And don't get me wrong, like, right now I'm super excited. I look forward to everything the UFC has, but I don't know, man. I feel like we just need that Conor energy for a little bit, one more time. And like I said, having a fight with, imagine you go beat Chandler, you go beat Justin Gaethje, and then you have the opportunity to kind of redeem yourself against Islam. And I know a lot of Islam fans are gonna be like, oh, like he doesn't stand a chance. And maybe he doesn't, maybe he does. I think he does. But it's just like, can you just imagine like that storyline, that fight, and that whole event? Like, it would just be electric and it would be amazing. So yeah, and I'm with DC. I want to see it. I want it to happen, and hopefully it does. So last thing on the list, we have UFC Fight Night in Brazil. I think that's pretty cool that they went to Brazil for this UFC Fight Night. And we have Derrick Lewis versus Almeida for, what is it called? For the headline. And I'm going to be real with you guys. I have no clue about the other fighters like that. I've seen the fights line up, but I'm just like, bro, I got no idea. So sorry about that. But like I said, I'm learning, I'm growing, and I'm figuring it out. But anyways, funny news, like I'm sure all of us have seen already. We saw Derrick Lewis, get pulled over in a red Lamborghini for driving a little crazy in Houston. And the first thing I thought about, I was like, man, we about to have another UFC event canceled, bro. Like, that's messed up. And then luckily it doesn't get canceled. Whatever happened. He got taken care of, or he took care of it. So he's free now, or he's available to fight. So I'm happy that the fight's still happening, because I do want to see Derrick Lewis fight, especially after the performance he had. And then this is where, before I get to that, seeing him fight, we want to see him fight, and it's exciting. But the whole, I guess, like incident, with him speeding in the red Lamborghini, the first thing I thought about, the second thing I thought about, I was like, this is like the most Derrick Lewis thing that could happen. And I was just kind of laughing about it. I was like, this is just so funny, that this happened to him on the week of, and I don't know if he was laughing about it or not, but I'm just like, bro, this is like the most Derrick Lewis thing that could happen. And he's just such an iconic fighter, and he's just, I think, a little bit of culture in the community, and we just love him, and he's just such a heavy fan favorite. So, excuse me, I've seen him fight a few times already. Not mistaken, has the most knockouts in the whole UFC, and he just signed a new contract, and his last performance was spectacular, I like to think, or like to say. And Almeida, I know a little bit about him. I've probably seen him fight once, but I know that he's no slouch, right? He's not an easy opponent. And I like that Derrick Lewis is, being active, because his last fights was just a few months ago. And he said some wild shit on the mic, and it was cool. We didn't know if it was his last fight or not. So very epic performance, threw a flying knee, if you guys don't remember, and then just got the TKO. And, this fight, he has to, not that he has to do anything, right? But, he made that performance, and if I'm not mistaken, he had like 3 losses in a row. I don't want to say it was 4, but I think it was 3. 3 losses in a row, and the fact that he got a TKO, it must have felt nice. And so now, like, if he can, kind of get some momentum going, we can possibly see Derrick Lewis, kind of, competing against the top level fighters like he was, like over a year ago, And he said he's taking his health more serious. He said he's taking training more serious, and he wants to be fighting at the highest level. And it would be so cool to see, Derrick Lewis like fighting, these big names, right? Oh, why am I freaking out right now? Hold on. All right, sorry. But it would be cool to see him fight like those big names in the heavyweight division. We've seen the fight with him and Cyril Gane. But, him against, like, one day against, like, Tom, Sergey, and then the other Sergey guy. Who else is in there like that's big? We got Tom, obviously John Jones and Stipe, but I don't think they're fighting anyone else but each other. So there's some names there that, he can compete, with, and if he gets this one, he can make another statement. I was like, there's a few fights, you know, that you can get Derrick Lewis in, and it will be entertaining, and it could get him to, you know, fight a top level guy and eventually maybe a possible title shot. So, you know, and it would be cool to see Derrick Lewis do that because, like I said, he's a fan favorite, and we just love him, and we like love seeing his fights. Such a funny guy, and I mean, just very, very likable. So I'll be watching, and I'll be watching the rest of the fights, learning these fighters, learning the fighters' names, and everything about that I can, really. So don't have too much really to say about fight night besides just that fight. And I just hope that it's a good fight. That's all I really hope for, and I hope it's entertaining, and I really want to see Derrick Lewis win. But we'll just have to see. And I don't want to give predictions because, like I said, I don't know too much about Almeida either, so I'm not really too sure. But that's the end of the episode, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and just let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'll see you guys in the next one. I hope you guys got paid this today. Peace.